Hello, I'm Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Literary Love 123, where I combine my master's in English with my passion for the horror genre to talk about the books that I read. I am kicking off a reading vlog today. I'm going to be reading two of my most anticipated 2025 horror releases. So, without further ado, let's get to that intro, and I'll be right back to talk about the books I'll be reading during this vlog. The first book I'll be reading for this vlog is Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. So let me read a little blurb on the front. A blood-drenched, glittering jewel of a novel. And that was blurbed by Jennifer Saint, who's the author of Ariadne and Atalanta. And let me tell you what we see on the back about Hungerstone, and then you'll probably know why this book screamed my name as soon as I found out about it. A compulsive feminist reworking of Carmilla, the queer novella that inspired Dracula. If you follow my channel, you know of my love for Carmilla, but at the same time, you know of my longing for more to that story, more about Laura and Carmilla's relationship. So let me tell you the synopsis for Hungerstone. It's the height of the Industrial Revolution, and 10 years into Lenore's marriage to steel magnate Henry, their relationship has soured. When Henry's ambitions take them from London to the remote British moorlands to host a hunting party, a shocking carriage accident brings the mysterious Carmilla into their lives. Carmilla, who is weak and pale during the day but vibrant at night. Carmilla, who stirs up something deep within Lenore. And before long, girls from the local village fall sick, consumed by a terrible hunger. As the day of the hunt draws closer, Lenore begins to unravel, questioning the role she has been playing all these years. Torn between regaining her husband's affection and the cravings Carmilla has awakened, Lenore will soon uncover a darkness in her household that will place her at terrible risk. I cannot wait. I'm going to be starting it as soon as I finish this clip. And this sounds absolutely delicious. I cannot wait. So I'm going to get a sip of my tea and talk about the second book I'm going to read for this vlog. Okay, so the second book I'm going to be reading is The Lamb by Lucy Rose. Look at this cover. This cover is just like everything. So let me give you one of the blurbs from the back. And this is the blurb from Molly Aiken, who's the author of Bright Eye Burn. And Molly Aiken writes, "This is the book I've been waiting for. Dark, twisted, and utterly enthralling. The Lamb is a novel I will never forget. Lucy Rose's prose gave me chills, perfectly capturing the horrors and beauties of girlhood. Dear reader, I predict you will be as obsessed as I am. I predict that I will be obsessed as Molly Aiken is too." So let me tell you what The Lamb is about. A folktale, a horror story, a love story, an enchantment. Margot and Mama have lived by the forest ever since Margot can remember. When Margot is not at school, they spend quiet days together in their cottage waiting for strangers to knock on their door. Strays, Mama calls them. People who have strayed too far from the road. Mama loves the strays. She feeds them wine, keeps them warm. Then she satisfies her burning appetite by picking apart their bodies. But Mama's want is stronger than her hunger sometimes. And when a beautiful white-toothed stray named Eden turns up in the heart of a snowstorm, Margot must confront the shifting dynamics of her family, untangle her own desires, and make her bid for freedom. With this gothic coming of age tale, debut novelist Lucy Rose explores how women swallow their anger, desire, and animal instincts and wrings the relationship between mother and daughter until blood drips from it. I cannot wait to get into this one after I finish Hungerstone. I'll be sharing my thoughts throughout this vlog as I get through both of these highly anticipated books. So after I have read some of Hungerstone, I'll be back to tell you what my thoughts are. Hello, it's Tuesday morning, February 25th. I'm only a couple of chapters into Hungerstone, but I already have a lot of thoughts, so I thought I better do a check-in to brief you on what I think so far. So before I get into the story itself, I just want to share one more thing to add to all the other things about this book that pull me in. The quote at the beginning is, "Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?" from The Witch, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. So if everything else hadn't been calling my name already, then that solidifies it. Okay, so I'm just gonna take you along through my journal and the notes I've taken so far. And so I just want to talk too that this book is mentioned, or this book is broken into sections. So section 1 is titled, "It is not the dead you should fear." So, just to give you a little bit of background information, this is during the Industrial Revolution. The year is 1888. So, the narrator, Lenore, is 30 years old. She's married, and sorry, I have eyelash or something in my eye. So she ends up at the beginning of the book having her period, and she's talking about how she's not surprised because not only has she not been able to conceive, but also she says that her husband hasn't lain with her in a year. They're sleeping in separate bedrooms at the beginning of the story. And she also says, I'm just going to read some quotes to you now. "To be a woman is a horror I can little comprehend," because she's talking about how she started having her monthly cycles early. She's talking about now she is dealing with the pain and the cramping that come along with, having your monthly cycles. And she talks in a little while after mentioning that her maid or servant of some type is bringing her tea and putting laudanum in it, and she says, "My body is my enemy, and I will use every weapon in my arsenal against it." So we're getting already a lot of commentary on women and women's bodies and the experience of those who have monthly cycles. And she also talks about how, she's beautiful, and she's not doing this in a cocky way. It's more of a well-known kind of statement. She says, "I'm a beauty. It is well known." So that we kind of get the idea that that's the main reason that her husband married her, partially for her beauty. And we do find out that she came, with some wealth, because there was a whole dowry thing and all that. And if you can't tell already, I'm kind of leading you into the way that I feel about her husband Henry, which is not good. So she also talks about, even as early as chapter 1, about having these dreams where there's a woman who's in bed with her and who maybe sucking her neck, doing something like that. But when she wakes up, she doesn't see any sort of like puncture wounds or anything like that. So she's thinking, is this a dream? Is this real? And so that's kind of lending itself definitely to the aspect of this book, which is the Carmilla reimagining. So all of that takes place in chapter 1. And then in chapter 2, the narrator, Lenore, is getting a bit upset about something. And it's nothing extreme. Like, it's okay sometimes to be upset to an extreme, but she's just kind of bringing up a subject. And Henry, her douchebag of a husband, says to her, "You are not some hysterical woman. That is your great strength. You are more like a man emotionally." I said, fuck that guy. First of all, if you know the origin of the word hysterical, you know that that is a misogynistic term, that it was the belief held at this time that a woman would be emotionally overwrought because of a traveling womb, right? This idea that, everything inside of her wasn't in order and it was all connected to her being a woman, and only women would have those kind of emotions, and just attaching all of this idea of madness to women. Of course, we have the whole mad woman in the attic when we think of Jane Eyre and Bertha Mason. So that idea was very prevalent at that time. I say at that time, but let's be real. Look what's happening right now. But that's a topic for another day. Um, Lenore also notices that Henry throws some papers in the fire. She's not supposed to be in his study, and she does go in his study to leave him kind of like a little romantic note. And then she sees him throwing papers into the fire and burning them. That's what she was called hysterical about, because she asked him, "Hey, did you not see that I left you a little note? Are you burning everything? Did you not look on your desk and see I left you a note?" And his immediate response is basically, "Chill out, quit being hysterical, stop acting like a woman." So, yeah. And we also find out that Lenore was orphaned at the age of 12 because of a carriage accident. And she goes to live with an aunt, and we don't find anything out about the aunt yet, but it does say that Lenore describes the moment that she arrives on the doorstep of her aunt's house to live with her. And when her aunt opens the door, she says, "That is where my life ended." So obviously, it's not going to be a very good experience whatsoever for Lenore when she has to go and live with her aunt Daphne. We also get descriptions of the Industrial Revolution, and we find out that Henry is the owner of several steel mills, and a journalist tries to corner Lenore and ask her if she's aware of the rumors about her husband's mill, that ever since he took over, there has been a very serious decline of safety. And again, we get the idea that Henry is probably covering something up. Maybe he was burning something in the fire that was some sort of evidence of an accident at his mill. Maybe that's why they're leaving the city to go into the country. He's trying to get away from all this. So we already have very low opinions of Henry going into this. And as chapter 2 closes and Henry and Lenore are on their way to the home in the country that they're going to be staying at, they come upon a carriage wreck, and a woman is pulled from the wreckage of the carriage. And if you know, again, if you know the story of Carmilla, then you see where this is going. I am enjoying the book so far, and I'm going to go now because I already talked a lot just about the first 2 chapters. I will see you in the next check in. Hello, it's Friday morning around 10:30. I just got finished with a telehealth appointment with my psychiatrist. This is Gandalf in the background. Gandalf, say hi. So it's been a few days since I checked in. There's been a lot going on. I've been prepping for teaching. Yesterday, I taught my Poe class, and the past few weeks, we've been focusing on vampire symbolism in Poe's work. So we've been reading and discussing Ligeia, Berenice, and Morella. So that's always a lot of fun. I love teaching my Poe semester course. My students enjoy it too. So it just makes for a really wonderful experience. So let's get back now to Hungerstone. I am only, through chapter 6. So today's, check in, I'll be talking about chapters 3 through 6. I am enjoying it, but there is a lot going on right now. So I'm not reading it quite as quickly as I would like. But hopefully this weekend I'll have more time, but probably not because I'll be gone for a day with my best friend tomorrow. We're going to eat lunch, do some other stuff. Sunday, I'll be on a live chat with Cliff and Christine for their book club, Fright Club. We'll be talking about The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Keist. So I will link that live show discussion down in the description box so that if you didn't get a chance to watch it live, you can watch it, on the replay. So, all right, let me actually get into now talking about Hungerstone. Before I talk about actually some of the events and my reactions to things that happen in chapters 3 through 6, I want to talk a little bit more about the origin of the word hysteria and calling someone hysterical. I talked a bit about it in the previous check-in, but I wanted to go into a little bit more detail now. And I also wanted to talk about this Victorian concept of the angel in the house because that is a very prominent theme that is running through Hungerstone. And I feel like it's important to kind of talk about both of those terms, hysteria and angel in the house, before I get into more about the book itself. So, with the word hysteria, it does have its origin in Greek. It comes from the Greek word hystera, meaning uterus. As I talked about before, it is believed to be this wandering womb or traveling uterus, and that is what is causing women to have certain symptoms. Notably, Hippocrates believed that hysteria was caused by this idea of a wandering womb. And for centuries, hysteria was primarily associated with women, and it kind of served as this catch-all term for a wide range of symptoms. Symptoms such as, if a woman was experiencing anxiety, irritability, excessive emotion, shortness of breath, fainting. You're quite familiar probably with old, stories of women fainting. Increased or decreased sex drive was also attributed to hysteria, as well as hallucinations or embarrassing or unusual behavior. Now, embarrassing or unusual behavior, for example, in Victorian society, like what we have here in Hungerstone, for a woman to exhibit embarrassing or unusual behavior might just be that she dared to speak her mind. She dared to contradict her husband. She dared to want more than just being at home, taking care of the husband and the children without having any sort of outlet or any agency to, you know, explore things of interest to her. So that would have been embarrassing to the husband and it would have been unusual. So that kind of leads us into that concept of the angel in the house. So in Victorian times, this was primarily associated with the idea of a woman's place being in the home. Now, the term actually came from the a poem by Coventry Patmore that was titled "The Angel in the House," and it really dealt with all these, virtues of the perfect Victorian wife. She was expected to be selfless, pure, devoted to her husband and children, skilled in her domestic abilities. She was expected to be submissive, nurturing, caring, focused only on creating a comfortable and moral home. So, this ideal heavily influenced societal expectations of women, limiting their opportunities for education, independence, and any sort of career outside of the home. It really became this point of contention for early feminist movements, for backlash from women because they wanted more than just to be the angel in the home. And you'd like to think that all of that kind of went away as Victorian society emerged into, latter periods of time. But I'm sure this idea is still prevalent today. So now that we have a little bit more background of hysteria and the angel in the house, let's talk about Hungerstone itself. So again, I'm just pulling you right into my journal with me. So they get to the country estate on the moors where they're going to be staying. The name of the house is Nethershaw. Was a manor, right? So the name of the manor is Nethershaw. And the descriptions for Nethershaw are very, very gothic. Hold that thought. I'm getting a call. Okay, sorry about that. So back to the Gothic descriptions of Nethershaw. This is how Lenore writes about this manor. Low stone, turrets and crenellation, ivy smothering one side like mold growing across rotten fruit. It is a mouth closed around a secret, a promise unspoken. So once they get to Nethershaw, Lenore continues to have dreams of this woman. Henry tells Lenore that the injured woman from the carriage is actually staying at Nethershaw while she recuperates. And Henry tells Lenore that this woman will not reveal anything about herself except for her name. And Lenore asked Henry if they should notify the police about the accident, about, trying to get into some kind of contact with the injured woman's family. And Henry is very adamant that they don't involve the police, which makes me again question what he's hiding, right? Because previously mentioned was all the accidents that had taken place at his steel mill that he runs. So he doesn't want to get police involved. Suspicious, very much suspicious. And then Henry tells Lenore that the name of the woman staying with them who was injured in the carriage accident is Carmilla Kernstein. So there we go, Carmilla. Once Lenore meets Carmilla, she realizes that this woman, Carmilla, is the same woman that she's been dreaming about. Now, Lenore is having to renovate the house. Nethershaw is, very gothic because it is run down in need of a lot of renovations. So Henry is leaving Lenore in charge of all of that because they're preparing for this hunting party that they're going to be hosting there in like a little over 2 weeks. We get again 2 more descriptions of how isolated Nethershaw is. This is what Lenore says. I catch a glimpse of the moors beyond, and I'm struck by how perfectly and totally alone we are. So it's given all that gothic goodness. We also get a reaction from the hunting dogs. They kind of go wild one day and they end up biting a gardener. And again, we get indications of something dark because Lenore has these thoughts whenever the gardener is bitten pretty severely by that hunting dog. There is bloodshed already, For a decade, I have carried the burden of Henry's secret, and now he brings another hunting party to our door. How simple it is for him to bury the past. I only pray we do not resurrect it. So, then, right, foreshadowing, this past will be resurrected. Very gothic again, this idea of the past haunting the present. And then there are some more references to hysteria, which is kind of what reminded me that, maybe I should go into a little bit more detail about that. Also, Carmilla supposedly is unable to leave her bed because she's so injured, or still, she hasn't quite gotten completely over her injuries from the hunting or the carriage accident. But also, Lenore's pretty sure that she sees Carmilla wandering the halls of Nethershaw at night. So Lenore finally goes in and meets Carmilla, and there's this immediate attraction. And there's also this, like, feeling that Lenore has of just being compelled to unburden herself about her painful past, about her marriage, and all these other personal details to this woman that she's just met. And the attraction between them is just absolutely delicious. Lenore says, "It is as though a crack opened up beneath my feet the night I dreamt to Carmilla, and the dust has shaken loose around me. There is this sense of vertigo and the drop below." Yes, yes. Then we also get more insight into the way Lenore feels about her douchebag husband, Henry, and about marriage itself. She talks about how she was beginning to feel this real hatred for Nethershaw and for the unending burden of wifehood. She goes in and she like tidies Henry's room because they're still sleeping in separate rooms, and he's just left his room in utter chaos. And as she's tidying up his room, she thinks, this is what a wife is for. So again, that's what really made me really want to talk about that angel in the house concept. Carmilla is feeling better and eventually joins Henry and Lenore for dinner, and there is this obvious attraction between Carmilla and Lenore during dinner. Henry doesn't like Carmilla and he wants her to leave. So he brings it up at dinner saying, "I really think that you need to leave. You should go recuperate somewhere else." And Carmilla is not having any of it. She's not taking any shit from Henry. And she looks at Lenore and asks her, "What do you think? Do you want me to leave?" And Lenore contradicts Henry, right? "Oh, that must be hysteria. What an embarrassing behavior, right? How dare you contradict your husband?" So she, says, "No, I really think that Carmilla should stay. I'll take the responsibility for her. I don't think it would be proper for me to turn her out." So she kind of uses the idea of the angel in the house to her advantage at that point, saying, well, this would be the proper way for a woman to behave, to be nurturing, to be caring. So Henry doesn't like that at all, though. He's pretty pissed. So that after dinner, he, tells Lenore, "I don't appreciate you contradicting me in front of a stranger." But she's able again to kind of play on that idea of the angel in the house to be like, I'm going to take care of her. I feel like it would not reflect well on us if we turned her out, all that kind of stuff, so that he relents and he's like, "Well, fine, but it's all on you, and you still better," I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically like, "You better make sure you're still taking care of all these renovations and getting everything ready for my hunting party." And I love also this quote about the way Lenore feels about Carmilla. "Carmilla holds an allure, like ghosting a finger around the edge of a flame. the temptation, the beauty, and the anticipation of pain. It's just so good. I mean, yeah, for lack of a better word, I'm just all giddy with excitement here. And Lenore also notices that the presence of Carmilla is really, helping her to be a bit more bold and to be a bit more assertive towards Henry. Then, next thing you know, Henry returns from town and he's brought Cora with him. Now, Cora is a friend of Lenore's. Cora's about 10 years younger than Lenore, and Cora's just kind of this so seemingly perfect, woman. And Lenore is not really thrilled to see Cora there. But now Cora is going to stay at Nethershaw too, which made me question, okay, so Henry's brought Cora and he was worried about Carmilla being a distraction for Lenore, but now he's brought Cora, and there's also I can't remember if I mentioned in the last check-in that I was suspicious that Henry is unfaithful to Lenore, and I'm just really pretty sure now that he is unfaithful to Lenore with Cora, because Lenore does question, how Henry knew that Cora was even in town to go pick her up and bring her to Nethershaw. And Carmilla directly asked Lenore this question, like, do you think that Henry is fucking Cora? I mean, Carmilla is just, she's not going to mince words. She's going to directly say whatever it is that she wants to say. And Lenore is offended by this, and like, how dare you, all that kind of stuff. So there's definite tension going on in that way also. And Lenore experiences another night of this presence, someone being in the bed, someone, possibly biting her neck. But then she doesn't ever really see any evidence of that, like the next day, like physical evidence to, show that it may have been true. So I know this is going to be a long vlog, but I have a lot to say about Hungerstone. And that's all I'm going to say right now. And I will check back in with you later. Hello, it's Saturday, March 1st. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon, and as you saw in a previous clip, I went to lunch with my best friend today. We went to a local Thai restaurant, and it was all absolutely delicious. Now, let me talk about Hungerstone again, chapters 7 through 9. So, in chapter 7, we get a bit of a backstory on Lenore's life whenever she went to live with her Aunt Daphne. And I mean, just in short, Aunt Daphne is this mean, grumpy old bitch. And in present time, Lenore is starting to experience a great deal of dizziness and nausea. And then some other events occur that make me even more suspicious about what may be going on between Henry and Cora. We also get in chapter 8 more of Lenore's backstory. We find out that she made her debut into society when she was 19. And I need to correct something I said, I think in like the first couple of chapters. I thought that Henry married Lenore for a lot of the reason being her money and a dowry. She did not have either one of those, but what she did have was a title because her father, of course, who passed away in the carriage accident, her deceased father was the Earl of Dorset, but before he died, he had been bankrupt. So she carries a name and a title, and that's why Henry, you know, was chose to marry her, because their engagement was more like this kind of business deal. And she says to Henry, well, you need me because you need a rank and status. And Henry says, well, you need me because you need money. So that was kind of how they kicked off, although Lenore does talk about how at the beginning their marriage was good and things were, going along well. But obviously that's kind of changed over time, and they still, at this new house at Nethershaw I mentioned, well, old house that's new to them, they still do not sleep in the same room. And Lenore, as she is experiencing this physical pain, there were just a couple of quotes that she said that describe pain, and one of them I'm going to mention now. Lenore says, pain takes me into its arms and makes a home in my body. And I just thought that was a profound statement about the way that pain can feel. We also find out that Henry and Cora are not really helpful at all of taking care of Lenore while she's not feeling well. Henry seems too busy with all of his other obligations, and Cora just kind of stands at the door with like a handkerchief over her face saying, well, I can't really come in there and see you because you may have something contagious and I've got a weak constitution, so I can't risk it. However, Carmilla comes in and takes care of Lenore, and their conversation again is like laced with longing and desire. And Carmilla continually asks Lenore what would make her happy, and Lenore just kind of defaults to, well, I should do this for Henry and I need to do this for Henry. And Carmilla's like, forget about Henry, what would make you happy? And the concept is so foreign to Lenore that she can't even adequately say what she would want to make her happy. And she even gets like anxious and frustrated at the thought of saying what she wants for herself. And Carmilla is trying to bring that out of her. In chapter 9, I can't really say a whole lot except the action really starts to pick up. And we start to get more insight into who or what Carmilla may be. I'm still enjoying it. And since I've already said a lot in the other check ins, I'm going to leave it at that for this check in, and I will see you in the next one. Hello, it's Monday morning, March 3rd. It's around 8 in the morning. I am drinking my coffee and here to check in about chapters 10 through 14 of Hungerstone. So again, let me just dive into my reading journal and share my thoughts with you. So in chapter 10, we start to get a lot of descriptions about the effects of the Industrial Revolution, where we find out, about the pollution of the factories and the smog that's covering the cities. And then I just want to also share a quote again, which is, back to the way that Lenore is absorbing everything about Henry, and she is acting, and she says this a little bit later on, as like a mirror for him, kind of reflecting whatever it is that he's putting out there. And she gives him all of these excuses for his behavior. For example, she thinks to herself, if Henry is changeable, it is because the pressures he faces are ever changing. It is self centered of me to assume that if he is short with me, it is because there is some matter wrong between us. Whatever foolish thought Carmilla has planted in my mind about him and Cora, it is all nonsense. So I'm like, whatever you say, Lenore, because Carmilla is angering Lenore by trying to get Lenore to speak up for herself, to get Lenore to even be able to identify what it is that she really wants and what it is that she really feels. We also get in this chapter descriptions of the factory working conditions, just how horrible they are, how dangerous they are, how a lot of the workers are young, people, sometimes children in these factories. And we have discovered before, as I mentioned in a previous check-in, that there are rumors and accusations about the mill that Henry runs not having safe working conditions, which would have been the case for pretty much all of the factories during the Industrial Revolution. Um, and again, Henry's behavior in this chapter just gets worse. He doesn't physically hit Lenore, but he's threatening by standing over her and just shaking with anger and just all the signs are there. Then in chapter 11, Carmilla says to Lenore, and again, I love Carmilla. She says to Lenore, I think you want to slap Henry for all the ways he has hurt you and made you say thank you for it. That really stood out to me. I think it would have stood out to me anyway, but in light of recent events, this whole idea of have you said thank you? Have you said thank you? You haven't thanked us. You haven't thanked me, is what Henry's, attitude is. Thank him for what? So all this time, Lenore continues to have visits from this nightly presence. And she also continues to suffer from nausea, vomiting, weakness, dizziness. So Lenore is dealing with some physical illness on top of all of this other stress. We also start to see some evidence in chapter 12 among the townspeople, of vampirism. So we have someone eating a bird and someone eating a person. So again, you've kind of got this, this vampirism is there, but it's not put to the forefront. It's just kind of in the background a little bit. Chapter 13, my only note was, have I mentioned how much I loathe Henry? So I didn't like him at the beginning, and he just gets worse and worse as the book goes on. Lenore is really just kind of, I don't know how to say it. She feels this pull towards Carmilla, but she's also at the same time angry, as I mentioned before, because Carmilla is awakening things in her that she has never experienced. And then in chapter 13, I can't say what, but there's like literally, and I don't say this lightly, my jaw dropped in chapter 13. Chapter 14, we get more insight into Henry and Lenore's marriage and past secrets that they have been keeping. Lenore has these thoughts about Carmilla that I have to share with you. It is as though she has made mobile some long calcified element of my soul, a great crack of a landslide within me, as something shakes loose, something buried by death and blood and fear. And that is the end of part 1. And then part 2, I mentioned before, part 1 is titled, It Is Not the Dead You Should Fear. Part 2 is titled, It Is the Living. So I'll be back in the next check-in to give you a peek into my thoughts about Hungerstone. Hello, it is about 8:30 on Wednesday, March, what is today? March 5th. And pardon my appearance, complete with the cowlicks and everything else. But I woke up a little while ago drinking my coffee. And I wanted to come on and give you my final thoughts on Hungerstone, which I had the book here somewhere, but I don't know where it is right now. But anyway, I did give Hungerstone a glowing 5 stars. I feel like I have found my favorite quote of the year, but we'll see when I read The Lamb next. But the quote from Hungerstone is, "What is a monster but a creature of agency?" And I feel like that could really be the thesis of this book. And if you, like I was a person looking for a bit more from Carmilla, then I feel like Hungerstone is going to satiate that hunger for you. And I've said so much about it, so I'm just going to leave it at that and let you find out for yourself. So next up is The Lamb, and it's back there on my TBR cart. You may see it back there. I should have picked it up, but anyway, I will be back in the next check-in to give you my initial thoughts on The Lamb by Lucy Rose. Good morning. It is Thursday, March 6th, and I don't even know what time it is. Let me look. Not that it matters that much. Close to 8. All right. So I'm here to talk about the first 6 chapters of The Lamb by Lucy Rose. I love it already. Let me just tell you a few reasons why. Okay, so first of all, the dedication says, "For my cat and my other best friend." So, okay, yeah, totally love that. The opening line, and I'm going to tell you what the opening line is, and I bet you'll be hooked too. Here's how we start this book. On my 4th birthday, I plucked 6 severed fingers from the shower drain. So many questions already. Why are you doing this when you're 4? What kind of shit have you seen in your life already? 6 severed fingers? Okay, we got this. All right. The other one of the other things I love about this is the chapters are very short. Like so far, some are as short as like 2 pages, maybe 4 to 5 at the longest, and that always helps me get through a book faster because I'm like, oh, okay, I can fit in one more chapter. Oh, this is only 3 pages. Keep going. Then there are also absolutely delectable descriptions of food prep that I feel a little bit disturbed by, having my mouth water. We're going to leave it at that. There's also a few quotes, of course. Brevity is not going to be my strong suit in this video. So, I'm sorry. Grab a drink, grab a snack, watch part of it one day, come back and watch part of it the next day. I can't help myself. All right. So, here's a quote that I just thought was really profound about how adults view children. As adults look at children, they don't really see them. They see a body without a mind, something that does what it's told. And the the premise here is that Mama and the main character, her daughter, of course, they live in this very isolated house, and sometimes strangers appear at their door for different reasons. They're lost, whatever the case may be. And Mama entertains these strangers and then does some stuff with them to keep her and I believe our main character's name may be Margot, to keep them fed. Yeah. So another interesting thing that Mama says: men are stupid when they feel powerful, little one. They become complacent. And I really liked that idea for reasons right now. Uh, the idea that men are stupid when they feel powerful and that they will become complacent. That gives me hope for certain things right now. Another thing that Mama does is to make Margot feel isolated, like they're the only ones who can understand each other and that they would be judged by society. Mama says the people out there, little one, they will never understand us. We're woven from different cloth. They'll never accept us. So that just further serves to isolate this young girl and make her feel like her mama is her only source for understanding and connection. Um, and then this idea about what is home. Mama explained to me that a house didn't mean bricks, four walls, and a roof. A house meant something in our hearts, and people without them were called strays. So that's what Mama calls the people that they invite into their homes and then consume. That's not really a spoiler. She calls them strays. So this idea that these people, are just without a home and without connection. Like, I'm kind of thinking about the connection between the fact that Mama is calling these people strays and saying, that they don't have any kind of connection to home. And at the same time, she's telling Margot that, if Margot tries to go out into the world, that she won't have connection there either because no one will understand her. So kind of putting those two ideas together, about what it means to be connected, what it means to feel isolated. And I am going to go now, and I'll be back when I have read some more of The Lamb. Hello, it's Saturday morning, March 8th. Happy International Women's Day. And I've made it over halfway through The Lamb. So let me catch you up. First of all, I'm going to start with chapter 7 and this quote from Margot speaking about herself and her fellow students as they're riding the school bus together. They were changelings, just like me. We were caught in the in between, no longer children, but not yet grown enough to be big. So, this is kind of a coming of age story, too, where Margot is starting to question some of the things that her mother has taught her. And in chapter 7, Margot also talks about physical abuse from her mother. And her mother calls the bruises that she leaves on Margot special kisses, which is very disturbing to me because her mother paints it like, I love you so much that sometimes my love comes out in bruises. And I cannot stop thinking about that. And then in chapter 9, we find out there's also like just verbal abuse that takes place between Ruth, who is Margot's mother, and in addition to that physical abuse I just mentioned, for example, Margot talks about, missing her father and wondering about her father, and her mother makes her say, Papa is selfish and he doesn't love me. It makes me so infuriated at Mama, but also so brokenhearted for Margot. Chapter 11, there is a new person that makes an appearance. She's a stray, but there's something about her that Mama finds appealing. And like chapter 9 closed with this statement, like Margot's internal thought, I felt this woman take root in our homestead. So this woman's name is Eden, and she ends up being in a romantic type relationship with Ruth, Margot's mom, and becomes an integral part of their family and participates in the, slaying of the strays and the consuming of the same. And then Margot is reflecting on the way that her mother feels about Eden, and she says, the love Mama had for me was like embers burning in and out with her whims, but the love she had for Eden was a bonfire. Again, in chapter 30, we get more, dialogue with Margot's bus driver, who I mentioned previously, is suspicious that something wrong, there's something wrong going on in Margot's home. And so he really wants to help her, and he encourages her to, reach out if she needs help and to tell someone if things are not okay at home. And we start to get into this dynamic between Mama, or Ruth, and Eden. Ruth is desperately hungry. She's relentless. She's always wanting to go and murder more strays, even though they have enough of a certain stray left over. They've got plenty to eat. And Mama just has this insatiable hunger for someone new to consume their dreams, their passions, their hopes, all of them. She's always looking for that next high, so to speak. And Eden is really tempering that recklessness, warning Ruth that we have to be more careful. We can't just keep doing this, because then someone's going to find out. Mama, or Ruth as her name is, but Margot, of course, is calling her Mama. She and Eden continue to have this, kind of back and forth with each other about whether they should just make do with what they have, or go and, make some new meat, so to speak. Margot talks about a certain best friend, or a friend that she's making at school, and Mama doesn't want her to make friends. And there's just a certain dynamic with this particular girl at school that I can't really get into because it would be spoiler. But when Margot is talking to her mother about, talking to her friend at school, Ruth slaps Margot and tells her, you're not to make friends. You're not to draw attention to yourself like this. You're supposed to go unnoticed. And I'm just so heartbroken for Margot. And I hope that she's going to be able to get out of this situation. So I'm going to go now, and I will get back to you. Probably won't check in again till I've finished the book. So see you in the next one. Hello, it's Monday morning, March 10th. It's around 9:30. I finished The Lamb last night. So let me tell you about the end of this book. Okay, in chapter 54, we find out something that literally made my jaw drop. So that happened in Hungerstone, and now it's happened in The Lamb. In chapter 57, we get some backstory on Enid. So we get some insight into her character and her experiences that have kind of shaped her to be who she is. Um, and then in chapter 58, we have this passage where Margot is talking about the bus driver that I've mentioned before who really cares about her. And I just thought this passage was so beautiful. So I'm just going to read it to you. I followed the words of the bus driver's music. To me, he was a church, calm, wise, and quiet. Most wouldn't realize that because he didn't look like a church, but he was. And I'm tearing up now because he is the only stable adult really in Margot's life. And she sees him as this safe space for her. And that's all I can really say about that. Okay. Whew. And then in chapter 72, I thought this statement that Margot makes or thinks to herself was so profound. And I find myself constantly thinking about that passage I just read about the bus driver and this particular passage. In chapter 72, Margot thinks, I wondered if this was what being a real human was, accepting you were pieces of other people too, the people you loved and the people you hurt. I gave this book 5 stars. My cat's up here, Freyr's up here because he heard me getting emotional. I think he was worried about me. He bumped the camera. But anyway, 5 stars for The Lamb by Lucy Rose. And I'm going to go ahead and conclude this vlog now because I'm getting cat butt in my face. But also, I feel like I've talked at length about both of these books. I thank you so, so much for watching this long video. I would love to know your thoughts if you've read Hungerstone or The Lamb. And I would greatly appreciate it if you would hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell so we can keep on talking about books that we read. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.